In round 54 we're going to make the last twisted corner, and we're going to get rid of those stitch markers in the third loops if you have used them. So we start with a chain 1 and then the twisted corner, the front post DC, chain 2, and then another front post DC around this first stitch here. Then starting in the top loop of the first stitch, 2 single crochet, a picot single crochet, and 3 single crochet, and the second of those should fall into this split spike. Another picot, then 2 single crochet, a single crochet in the back loop only, single crochet in both loops, and another single crochet in the back loop only, and in both loops. Now we're going to work a split spike into this stitch here. So we're splitting the split spike. I'm going to place my temporary stitch marker here. And then from here we're working 6 single crochet. 1, and the second goes into this picot from the previous round. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth goes into the split spike, and then here's one more. Another picot, which should be above these picot stitches. 3 single, and again the second is worked into the split spike, and another picot stitch. And we're working 6 stitches again. So the first goes before this front post, the second into the front post, and the third is just before the big rows, and the fourth is worked into the third loop. Now what I like to do again with this third stitch is to just anchor down my big rows here, just here. Working in the third stitch here, fourth stitch here now. So I can take out the stitch marker. And then the fifth is worked into the stitch just after the big rows. And I'm going to anchor down this bit here. Oh, actually, I'm going to leave it for the next round. So that's 5 and 6. Now I'm working a front post treble, 3 ahead, 1, 2, 3 ahead, and 1 stitch down, which is worked around this front post. And if that's too short for you and you notice that it's going to pull on your clair, then just make an extra yarn over. So working a double treble instead of a treble. Then we're working 10 single crochet. The third goes in the top here of this double treble, or this front post. The 7th into this split spike, and the 9th as well in the next split spike. So one more, because we're making 10, and then a picot which is above this picot here. then a single crochet, or actually it's 4 single crochet, and the third goes into the split spike, 4 and another picot stitch. One single crochet only, and then we're working back. We're working back 2 stitches, 1, 2, and down to 1, 2 around this stitch here with a front post treble. We skip the stitch behind this front post treble, which is this split spike. We work 1 single crochet and then a split spike minus 3. 1, 2, 3. We go 3 rounds down. And then another single crochet, which is our center stitch here, and another split spike, 1, 2, 3 down. One single. Now we're going ahead with a front post treble, 1, 2, 1, 2. So we're going around this stitch here. Skip the stitch behind this front post treble and 1 single crochet. Then a picot single crochet, 4 stitches, and the second falls into the split spike. Another picot, which is above this picot stitch here. Ten single crochet, the second goes into this split spike, so does the fourth, not in the same but in another split spike. And the 8th goes into this top here. 9, oops, 9 and 10. Okay, so now we go back with a front post treble and we're going around this stitch here. So we go back 3 from the next, 1, 2, 3, and then 1 down. We skip the stitch behind this front post treble and we go 1 and 2. And on the second of those, I'm going to anchor the big rows. And you can just pick and choose where you want to do it, if you want to do it. And the third stitch goes into the third loop of the big rows. So we have 3. And I'm going to anchor this one down as well, with a stitch that is just after the big rows, which is the one that is before this stitch here, this front post. And one more. Then another picot single. Three single crochet, the second should fall into this split spike here. Then another picot single crochet. Now we're working 6 single crochets, and the second of those should fall into this split spike. The 5th into this above the picot. Now we're working a split spike stitch again, so we're going back 1 and down 2. We're working into this split spike. Now working over this stitch, so this is my next one then. 1 single, single in the back loop only, single in both loops, single in the back loop only, single in both loops, and another one. So 2 single crochet after the last back loop stitch, and then a picot single crochet, 3 single crochet in both loops again. The second falls into the split spike, and then another picot, and we'll finish with 2 single crochet. So that's it. As I said, the last time we work the twisted corner. So when you've done the other 3 sides, you're just going to close the round with a slip stitch into this first front post double crochet, and that's your round 54. I'll see you in 55. Welcome to round 55. This is the first round. We're going to make a puff stitch corner, and to make the puff stitch corner we're going to yarn over 3 times. So we yarn over, insert the hook, pull up a loop, yarn over again, pull up a loop, and a 3rd time yarn over and pull up a loop. Now we're going to pull through all loops on the hook, and we close with a chain 1. Having this chain 1 means that our puff stitch has two closing stitches. Well, this is the closing chain, and this is the stitch that was on the hook. So we just remember that we call this the outer stitch and this the inner stitch, or the inner loop. And we chain 2, and then we do another puff stitch in the corner. So with 3 yarn overs, 3 times yarn over and pull through, go through all loops on the hook. You see, this is now the inner loop, and the closing chain is the outer loop. And to find the first stitch after the corner, you may have to just pull the puff stitch aside a little bit. We start with 5 single crochet, and then we work a picot single crochet. So that's just one above this split spike here. That's the picot. Another 3, and the second of those should go into this picot stitch. Oh, I just noticed I forgot something, which is stitch marker placement. We've got those 3 front loops here and on the other side. I'm not going to put them in because I'm going to take them out in a second again. But if you have trouble finding your 3 front loops, that's where you would place your stitch markers. So let's just keep moving for now. So we have those 3 single crochet, and we make another picot single crochet. And then one more stitch, which should be above this first free front loop here. In this one, we're now going to, in this and the other two, we're going to work the clover blossom. So the first leg of 6 will be a treble leg that goes into this front loop here and into the first one, which is one stitch behind the next and one round below. Well, actually 2 rounds below. So that's the treble, and in the same front loop we're going to work a double treble. Remember to keep them unfinished. And now we're moving to this here, to this loop or to these loops, and into those we yarn over 4 times, which is a triple treble, and we work 2 of those legs, 2 triple treble legs into those loops. So 4 times yarn over and again in the same loops. And now we work a double treble again into the next front loop, which is 1 ahead and 2 rounds below the next stitch. And in the same front loop we also work a treble. And then we yarn over and go through all loops on the hook, and we close with a single crochet, with a chain 1. So now you see we've got that little cup-like thing. When you look on the back, we have 1 stitch to skip, which is the stitch that is replaced by the clover blossom, and then we make 3 more single crochet. And the third should fall into the split spike. 1 picot stitch, picot single crochet, 1 normal single crochet, and then we have that special picot single crochet that we had in the beginning, where we only insert the hook in the front loop. We make our 3 chains, and then to close the stitch we need to anchor it back down, so we go in the back loop only of the same stitch, and then we pull the yarn through that back loop, which means 3 loops on the hook technically. And then our next stitch is a split spike, so we are going into this split and we split it again. We're working over this stitch, so this will be my next stitch, and in this one I'm making another picot single crochet. And then 3 single crochet, and the second of those should fall into the picot from the previous round. We follow up with another picot single crochet, and then 5 normal single crochet. The second goes into the picot from the previous round. And if you want, you can use the last stitch to, for example, anchor down a little bit this big rose, only if you want to. So you should have 5 single crochet. Now we're going to work a 2 together stitch, and the first leg goes 2 behind and 2 rounds below. So you go 1, 2 behind and 1, 2 rounds below, which is this front post stitch. And the second leg, also a treble leg, goes 3 ahead, 1, 2, 3, and only 1 below, which is this front post, the one that is really quite flat. And as before, or as always, in case this is not long enough for you, just add another yarn over. So we need to skip this stitch here, and then it would be followed by 6 single crochets. I'm going to anchor this one down because it is coming forward quite a bit. Going to grab this third loop. Actually, I'm going to grab the other one, this one here. And I'm anchoring this big rose. So that was the first of 6 single crochet. The third should fall into the top of this front post stitch here. And 6. Now we're going to work a split spike, which goes quite a bit ahead. It goes into this split spike here. So I'm going to mark my next stitch. This is the one I'm replacing, or I'm working over, and this will be my next stitch. So we go 3 ahead, 1, 2, 3, and 2 down, 1, 2. We're splitting another split spike. And I think the trick for neat split spikes is to keep this loop small when you insert your hook, and then be generous with the yarn over and pulling it up. So after this split spike, we'll make 1 single crochet, and then we're making another picot. Then 2 single crochet, and another picot. So this should be 2 before this picot from the previous round. And then 3 single crochet. Next we're going to work a long split spike, 4 down, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we insert the hook in the stitch that is above this one where we inserted the hook for this split spike, just one above. And we pull it up. 1 single. Then we're going back into this split spike, so that's a -1, -2 split spike. Working over the stitch, so the next single crochet, the next stitch that is worked into this picot stitch here. And it's the first of 5 single crochet. Now we're working our center stitch, and it's going to be a treble that is worked into those front loops that you may or may not have marked with a stitch marker. So it's a treble into these stitches here, into these loops here. Again, 5 single crochet, so we skip the stitch behind the treble. The third goes into this front post, and the 5th goes into this picot. We're working ahead, splitting this split spike. We go 1 ahead and 2 down. So that was our stitch we worked over. 1 single, and now again the 4 down. 1, 2, 3, 4 down. So we're splitting the stitch above this one. Three single, and the second should fall into the picot. And then another picot stitch, another picot single crochet, 2 single, and the picot, 1 single crochet, and now we're going back with this long split spike. We're going into this stitch here. Working over the stitch, so this one is the next, which is the first of 6 single crochet. Oopsala. And again with the 6th, I'm going to pull up this big rose just a little bit. Now we're working the 2 together stitch again, and this time it's the flatter side where we go 3 down, 3 back and 1 down that we work first, and the second leg goes 2 ahead and 2 down from the next stitch. 1 2 ahead, 1 2 down. Then we skip this stitch here, which is behind the 2 together stitch, and I want to pull this one up and anchor it with the next stitch. There we go. So it's the first of 5 single crochet. Then a picot, which again is above this split spike. Three single, and the second is worked into this picot from the previous round. Then our special picot, our picot X, where we work only in the front loop. Then we make our 3 chains. Then we go into the back loop, so we've got 3 loops on the hook, and we pull the yarn through all 3 loops on the hook, and then the split spike into this stitch here, and a normal picot stitch. And then 1 single crochet, which should be above this picot here. Another picot, and now 3 single crochet. And the third should bring you just above this front loop here as well. And we're going to work the clover blossom again. So the first leg is a treble leg in this first front loop here. And the second leg is a double treble leg in the same front loop. The fourth is a triple treble leg into the loops of this stitch here, which was that 3 together stitch. And the fifth and the fourth as well. So 1 2, the third and the fourth, 3 and 4 go into this loop. If this horizontal bar here bothers you, just pick it up, and also those stitches here, if that bothers you, just pick them up and work them into this stitch. Would look like that. 2, 3 and 4, and now a double treble leg again in the next 3 front loop, which is 1 ahead and 1 round and 2 rounds down. And the last is a treble leg in the same front loop again. Now we pull through all loops on the hook, and we close with a chain, and we skip the stitch behind. 1 single, and then a picot single crochet. Then 3 single crochet, and the second should be worked into this picot, or should fall into this picot. 1 more picot single crochet, and we finish with 5 single crochet. And then again our puff stitch corner, so with the 3 yarn over, but that's already part of the next side then, and closing with a chain, and then the 2 chains, and this is where the next side starts. Okie dokie. So this is round 55 then, so you just repeat it on the other 3 sides, and then close with a slip stitch into the outer corner of this puff, not the inner corner but the outer corner, and then your round 55 will be finished. Alrighty, we're making great progress in round 56. We've got 1 more gap to close here. And before we get started with the round, if you want to use stitch markers, you could place some in the top loops of the 2 together stitch from the previous round. So just in those top loops here, you can place them. And then we get started with round 56. So chain 1 to get up to the height of the next round, and then the puff stitch corner again. And again it's going to be a 3 yarn over puff stitch closed with a chain 1. So we've got this outer loop and the inner loop, and we chain 2, and then we'll make another puff stitch corner. And again we'll close with a chain 1. Now to continue the round, we're going to start not in the inner loop but in the outer loop of the puff stitch. So the puff stitch has 2 loop sets, and we start in the outer corner. We'll make 2 single crochet. The first goes in the popcorn and into the puff stitch, and the next goes into the next stitch. And then we work a picot single crochet. One single, and now we're going to work into this stitch here, into this split spike. I'm going to mark my next stitch, and then I work a split spike into this split spike, and then the first of 3 single crochets that I made go into the marked stitch, the second in this picot single crochet, and then another single. And now we're going back into the same split spike, also with a split spike stitch. I'm going to work over this stitch, which means this will be my next. So working over this, so just one before the picot is the first of 6 single crochet. So the second goes into the picot, and the fourth. Now we also have 2 top loops for the clover blossom. I like to work in the second in this closing chain, because this is going to straighten my clover blossom a little bit, and it gives it a tip, which is what I'm going for. So that was the fourth of the 6 single crochet, and now we've got 6. Okay, here we're going to work a split spike straight down into this split spike stitch, and then 3 single crochet. Now making another picot single crochet, two single, and we do this V again. We're going to do this a lot. So we go forward and backward with a split spike into the same stitch. We're going to repeat this quite a bit now. So we're going into this stitch here, and the stitch just before the picot is where I'm going to place the first of 3 single crochet. Now we're going back into the same split spike, also with a split spike. Working over this stitch, this will be my next first of 3 single, which should bring you just before the 2 together stitch that we've got here. And we're working a DCBB, a double crochet behind and below this 2 together stitch. Oopsala. And then we continue with single crochet. 6, 5 and 6 single crochet. Another picot in the top of this split spike, and then 2 single crochet, and the second of those will fall into this picot from a previous round. We're going to make another set of this V, so we go forward, not into this stitch but into this split spike here that is below this picot, and forward, and here's my next stitch, first of 3 single crochets again. Then we go back in the same stitch again with a split spike, 1 single, and now we have a little repeat of picot, or the repeat is single picot, 1 single, another picot, one single, and another picot. followed by 3 single crochet. Now we're going to close this gap here with a 2 together stitch. We go with a double treble, 3 behind and 3 below, and we also go 3 ahead and 2 below. Oh, sorry, we got 2 below, 3 behind, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2 below. So it's a double front post double treble, -3, -2, and the second leg is +3, -2. So the first leg, double treble, -3, -2, and the second leg, double treble, +3, -2. Then we skip the stitch behind, which is the center stitch, and we work another 3 single crochet. And then again this repeat of picot, and now it's the other way around. Now it's the picot and then the single 3 times. Picot, single, and one more time, and you will notice that the picots always fall into these split spike stitches. And a single crochet. Now we're going to work this V section again, where we go ahead into this stitch here with a split spike, and then we work 3 single crochet, and the second of the 3 should fall into the picot stitch from the previous round. Now we go back into the same stitch, also with a split spike. We work 2 single crochet, and then in the top of this split spike another picot. So we've got 6 single crochet. And if you notice that your picot is curving backwards, you can just pull it forward and it should stay in place from there then. So we said 6 single crochet, 4, 5, and 6. And again a DCBB, because we're now at the next 2 together stitch. So we go into the stitch, into the top loops of the stitch that was skipped in the previous round when we worked the 2 together stitch. 3 single, and again our V formation, going forward into this split spike here, working a split spike, and then 3 single, second falls into the picot stitch, and then going back into the same stitch also with a split spike. Now we work 2 single crochet, and the second will fall into this single crochet, into this picot stitch here, and we work another picot, and again this will be in the top of the split spike. Then 3 single, the last will fall into the picot, and then we're working a split spike straight down. Again, 6 single crochet, and I'm going to work again in the closing chain of the clover blossom with my 3rd stitch. 4, 5, and 6, and then again the V. I'm going forward with a split spike, and then 3 single, second falls into the picot, and going backwards in the same stitch also with a split spike. So working over this stitch here, this is my next 1 single and a picot stitch, and finishing off with 2 single crochet, and the second, which is the last stitch on this side, is worked in the outer loop of the puff stitch, not the inner loop but the outer loop. And when I make my next corner, I'm just going to skip this inner loop, so the puff stitch is worked directly into the chain 2 space. And then of course the 2 chains, and then we continue around the corner. So that's round 56. You'll notice that we're getting quicker again. It's just the length of the side, but the working is quicker because we've got less 2 together stitches and other, you know, things like the big rows that take up a lot of time. So just repeat it on the other 3 sides, and again close with a slip stitch into the outer loop of the popcorn of the puff stitch in at the end, and then we've got 3 more rounds to go.